Never seen before in history, and lift the spirit of this Ramadan to bring us closer to Allah more than ever.
Man is left with no way of knowing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala other than by virtue of his names and his majestic attributes that he gave himself and gifted humanity with.
We want to raise our children in the most perfect way, and perfection belongs to Allah. If a person comes to you whose religion and character pleases you, then get your daughters married to him.
It's not going to be easy, but Allah never leaves you alone. That's the essence of what we can get from the Prophet's life.
It's my pleasure, it's my honor to introduce Quran recitation from the Imam Jazari Institute.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله.
Now just think with me about the verse where Allah says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُمْسِكُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ أَن تَزُولَا.
We'll start with an easy one for you, Sheikh, inshallah. Can I postpone Taraweeh until the last third of the night?
Yeah, so essentially the night prayer is offered after Salat al-Isha, and you have until Salat al-Fajr to offer that.
We're all linked together in this. And that's really what empathy is. I mean, empathy in Arabic is like ataf, to tilt towards, to move towards.
Conveying insults. You know, the Arabs had a saying, "Ma shatamak illa man ballagak." The one who insulted you is the one who conveyed the insult to you.
There can be no more greater relationship of a husband and a wife than the Prophet ﷺ and Khadija.
We don't just leave that piece of knowledge that we've received just there on the page.
This virus is a mercy for us Muslims, because the Prophet ﷺ, he told us in a hadith that when you are afflicted with something, it's an expiation of your sins.
Down to earth like gravity, imagine me trying to turn my dreams to reality.
Allah Jalla wa'ala mentioned those who come in the front. وَالسَّابِقُونَ السَّابِقُونَ. They are the most successful people.
How we can embed the love of the Quran in the hearts of the young generation.
Welcome to the online masjid. Sign up now for your personal access to 300 plus free on-demand video content.
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in wa ba'd. We know from the Quran how Ibrahim alayhi salam called his father to Islam eagerly and relentlessly. Again and again Ibrahim alayhi salam would entice his father to accept the message and to shun his idols, to be spared from the punishment of Allah Azza wa Jal. Yet Ibrahim's father would reject his call. He would shun Ibrahim and he would even threaten to kill him were he to persist. Allah Azza wa Jal says that his father Azar said, قَالَ أَرَاغِبٌ أَنْتَ عَنْ آلِهَتِي يَا إِبْرَاهِيمُ لَإِنْ لَمْ تَنْتَهِ لَأَرْجُمَنَّكَ وَهْجُرْنِي مَلِيًّا. He said, do you forsake my idols, O Ibrahim? If you don't stop, I will stone you. So keep away from me for a long time. Ibrahim alayhi salam would remain patient, and test upon test would arrive to test his iman and resilience. Eventually Ibrahim alayhi salam would be ordered to slaughter his only son at the time, Ismail alayhi salatu wassalam. But look at how the tables turned. Unlike Ibrahim's episode with his father, Ismail would spare his father from even asking him to fulfill Allah's command, and Ismail himself would order his father in the most beautiful way to fulfill Allah's command without Ibrahim alayhi salam needing to plead even for a moment Ismail alayhi salam said, Ya abati if'al ma tu'mar, satajiduni insha Allahu min as-sabirin. He said, do as you are ordered, O father. Insha'Allah, you will find me of the resolute. For Ibrahim's patience, Allah replaced a father who would run away from guidance and fulfilling Allah's commands with a son who would run towards it. Such is the reward of the patient. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.
هذا القرآن يوحدنا لطريق الخير يوجهنا الله تعالى أنزله ورسول الله معلمنا.
بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وبعد. Growing old until we reach an age of senility and we potentially become a burden on others is quite a worrying prospect, especially after an age or a period of strength and independence. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ ثُمَّ رَدَدْنَاهُ أَسْفَلَ سَافِلِينَ. We created man in the finest mode and in the best fashion. Then we reduced him to the lowest of the low, meaning in the latter part of life, he is reduced to the lowest of the low, much like when he was first born. There is, however, a group exempt from being reduced to the lowest of the low. They are, in some narrations, those who committed the Quran to memory. For those, according to some of the Mufassirun, will be spared from reaching that age of senility in which they know nothing and they become a burden on others. They are the ones covered by the exception in the verse, إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ فَلَهُمْ أَجْرٌ غَيْرُ مَمْنُونَ. Except those who do right actions and believe, they will have a wage which never fails. Subhanallah, this means protect the Quran in your youth when you are able to do so, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will protect you with the Quran in your old age when you need that protection. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.
هذا القرآن يوحدنا لطريق الخير يوجهنا. دعائي وابتهالي شاهد لي بافتقاري.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome again to another daily QA show here at Islam 21C on the online Masjid project. My name is Mahmoud Saeed and I'll be your host today, inshallah. And we'll be having with us today Sheikh AbdurRaheem McCarthy, all the way from Turkey, inshallah. Before we go straight to Sheikh, before we go to Sheikh, let me just remind you, if you want to send questions, then please do add the questions in the comments of your Facebook and your YouTube. And if you don't want to publicize your question, you can always send us an email at dailyqa@islam21c.com. We hope you're enjoying Ramadan. I know for many of you, the 27th night was yesterday, and tonight for some people will be the 27th night. For those of you who started Ramadan the day later, may Allah accept it from you. And if it is Laylatul Qadr, inshallah, it was Laylatul Qadr, inshallah, I hope everyone captured and was able to benefit from it. And I guess moving on to welcome Sheikh AbdurRaheem.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Yakum Allah. Good. How's everything,
How are you
mashallah?
doing, Sheikh? Yeah, I'm good, mashallah, Sheikh. I mean, you look good. How was last night? And so was it? I know obviously it's not the same as usual in Masjid, but
To be honest with you, I mean, even from last year, my experience is a bit different. And the country I was in last year for the first part of Ramadan, it was their salat was a bit different to what we're used to. So they would pray, for example, with maybe one or two ayahs, and then they would do the takbir, Allahu Akbar, and they would then pray really fast like that. So I didn't find much pleasure when I prayed with them the first night. So I ended up actually started praying by myself in the house from last year. So I kind of got used to it in a way. And I find sometimes when you pray by yourself, even many of the scholars who I used to study under in Medina, they would pray by themselves as well. And they said you could pray more if you want to pray more, or even if you're not praying more, at least you pray on your own pace. You can pray 2 rak'ahs and you kind of relax. Even the word tarawih, by the way, and where does it come from? Is they're taking the raha in the middle. They would because after they would pray the 4 rak'ahs, they would kind of chill out a bit, And the people who lived in Mecca, they would make tawaf. So I mean that shows that they would have a long istiraha. They would have like a long break between the different rak'ahs. Whereas we're like going in a hurry now. It's actually not the goal of it. So I found that I've enjoyed actually praying in the house. It's been enjoyable. And then you go at your own pace, and then when you're able to do your own khatma in the salah. I think a lot of people probably did finished their khatma last night on the 27th. And when you finish your own khatma, it feels in the salat it feels good. Alhamdulillah.
SubhanAllah. Actually, going on that point, Sheikh, you said you've done Taraweeh in Medina. You've done it obviously probably in Ireland, and now probably in Turkey. Well, I mean, maybe other countries. Is there a favorite place or that you've found that you love the most?
I wouldn't say a particular favorite place, because I think all of them are very similar. I mean, Turkey's different. Turkey is the way they pray is much different. But if you count all of the other countries, it's very similar. Ireland, it was a bit. We had a bit of an issue there with the people who wanted to pray with the juzu. But the reality is that we only had 5 hours. We were fasting for 19 hours when I was there, and 5 hours we only had. So I mean, and the way I found the other masjid that was there before us, they were reading very fast. There were some mistakes being made in the recitation, even though the brothers were hufad. But when you read it at like a turbo speed, you're bound to make mistakes, right? So I found that it wasn't it wasn't really enjoyable. It wasn't really the objective of the salah. Therefore, in my masjid where I was the imam, we made it probably about a page in each rak'ah. So we would read less than half of a juzu in the salat. And the people they came and some of the people were like, no, we have to read a juzu. When they tried it, they said, you know what? They said they really were happy, and they said this because we're not going really fast in the ruku and the sujood as well. So they really enjoyed it. And I remember that one of probably the most pleasurable salats that I prayed was actually in the UAE in Sharjah. And I went into the masjid. It was about the middle of Ramadan, or maybe about like 11th or 12th of Ramadan. And the imam, he was still in Surah Al-Baqarah, which you're supposed to be day 2 or day 3, at least you're finished with Surah Al-Baqarah, right? So I was like, what's this guy doing, So but I looked around the masjid. It was very, very peaceful, very calm. The atmosphere was very nice. The masjid was small, but it was very clean, very well kept. And the imam, he prayed not like really fast, like Alif Lam Mim Dhalika al-Kitab, Alif Lam Mim Dhalika al-Kitabu La Rayba Fi, doing nice, and I was like, this is nice tilawah. I used to listen to it. He'd only read like a half of a page, and then he would make a nice, nice ruku', maybe about 10 Subhanallah bil Azims, and you could get into the ruku', and the sujood about the same, or maybe a bit longer, So it was very nice the way he had that. I felt really good, even though it wasn't that long. It felt like it was a quality salat, It wasn't a quantity salat like sometimes we're used to. It was a quality salat. So and that's probably one of the most memorable, taraweehs for me. I really enjoyed that. Alhamdulillah.
What about would you say there's I mean, I guess with that was common in Saudi Arabia outside of the Haramain. They would recite very small amounts, but very slowly. But then they wouldn't finish the juz. I mean, sorry, finish the
Well, what
Quran,
some of them
the
do,
itself.
like some of the masjid I used to pray with in Medina, because I didn't used to go too much to the Masjid Nabawi because I follow the opinion. This might be a bit controversial, but I believe that some of the imams who lead the prayer in Medina, that they're not allowed to lead the prayer, and I don't believe they have the ability, the recitation. Even some scholars say that their prayer is not accepted.
I'm not sure is Sheikh there. Assalamu alaikum. Sheikh, are you there? I think Sheikh's having some technical difficulties. Apologies for that, inshallah. We'll try our best to try and get him back on, inshallah. Meanwhile, while we're waiting, inshallah, for the Sheikh to come, for those of you who have not been to the online masjid or heard about the online masjid, our online masjid project is a amazing project in which we have, I think we're trying to call him, the Sheikh at the moment, which we have over 300 episodes of different series, 20 plus different series on a variety of topics, inshallah. We launched it at the beginning of this Ramadan, and there is a free period of about 3 months for those of you who'd like to go join and get involved and enjoy the lectures and reminders, inshallah. One second. I think they're hearing my sound, so let me just mute that somehow. I have no idea how to mute that. Okay, so I'm not sure if you can hear me still, but I think we're still having some technical difficulties to get Sheikh on the line. He is calling from Turkey, mashallah, tabarakallah. And as is probably as this is the first time actually we've had this problem in Ramadan, but alhamdulillah, I think it's reasonable. I mean that we're all working remotely in this period of time, alhamdulillah. While we're waiting, inshallah, as I said, I was talking about the online masjid project. You can go on online masjid project and enjoy all the episodes from all the different series, from Sheikh Ali Hamouda, from Sheikh Sajid Omar, from Sheikh Haytham al-Haddad, from Sheikh Tariq Ramadan, from Sheikh Kamal al-Makki. I mean, there's so many, it's unbelievable, mashallah. Yeah, I can't enumerate how many there are. Dr. Usman Latif and so forth and that kind of thing. There's plenty of people there, inshallah. While we're trying to get Sheikh and if you want to go visit that on onlinemasjid.islam21c.com. You can go there, subscribe, and you'll get access to all the videos, inshallah. And if you enjoy it, then please do think of subscribing and making a monthly payment of it's just merely £5. It will help us continue our work here at Islam21c and help us, inshallah, to move forward. Oh, I think we've got Sheikh AbdurRaheem.
Yeah, the power just cut. It was really weird, you know. It just it cut for like maybe 5 seconds, and it was part of it's like it stayed on here, the computer, but for some time then it cut off. So it was really weird. Alhamdulillah. So we're back.
Does that happen often, or is that?
It's probably like that. Maybe once or twice happened before, but I've been here for a year. It's probably maybe the second time. No, first time actually, maybe. First or second, and it very rarely happens. Yeah. Alhamdulillah.
So
there's an issue. I mean, one of the scholars who I studied under, he was the head of the the Mushaf of Medina. There's two copies. There's the original copy. That's when the really hard work was done for that, where they had hundreds of scholars who from around the world to revise and make sure this is the most authentic Mushaf that you could have available. It's really impressive, the things that they did. And mashallah mubarak. So one of my teachers, he was actually my neighbor. He was the one who was the head of the committee of all the qaris. He was the head of them, and his family name is Al-Qari, Sheikh Abdul Aziz. He was the Imam of Quba for some time, and he was also the head of the College of Tafsir in the University of Medina as well. So he was of the opinion, he's very strict because he's a Qari himself. He's very strict on the people that you're allowed to pray behind. I mean, obviously, we're not to that type of level where we have that, that as an authentic of a recitation as the Sheikh. But I mean, there was one particular imam who had a problem pronouncing al-ayn. So I mean, I felt it wasn't permissible to pray behind him. Therefore, even when I went recently to Medina, 2017, they still have him there. I didn't pray. I left. I left praying during that time as well, because or 2015, I think it was. Yeah, so I wouldn't pray during that time, because obviously the mihrab of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We have to be honest. You have to have the cream of the crop, people whose the recitation and their Islamic knowledge. They have to be very, very sound. And it's not just because someone's from a particular family or from has a certain status that we allow them to be the imam of Mecca or Medina. So I mean that being Medina.
Also, Sheikh, you're mentioning. Sorry to push in there. You're specifying this specifically to the Masjid al-Nabawi. Yeah, or the Haram itself. Okay.
I told the Sheikh I was talking about when I spoke with him about it. He even has opinion about Mecca. Talking about the old imams, the new imams, I don't even know most of their names, to be honest with you, so I couldn't give. I know the ones when I was there, but the new ones I'm not sure about all of them. But I mean the ones when I was there, I know which ones we're referring to. But the point is that there was a qari we had, a young brother. He was actually a student at the time in the College of Sharia. Him and his brother, they were both amazing qaris, and they lived very close to where we live. So I found myself being more comfortable praying there than unfortunately going to the Masjid al-Nabawi because of the situation of the salat there. So it's and what some of the masajid would do is that even if he reads with a hizb, which is half of a juzu, that means he's going to finish 15 juzus in Ramadan, is that he would read during the qiyam, he would read more, increase it, so that way if he reads like a juzu in qiyam or a little bit more than a juzu, then they could finish on the 29th. So that's what one masjid did. That's what the older brother did. The younger brother who I used to pray with, he lived in the neighboring neighborhood to us. His recitation was amazing. But what he would do was pretty interesting. He would read half the Quran this Ramadan, and next Ramadan he would start from the middle where he stopped, and he would continue from there. So alhamdulillah, that was interesting. But I mean I think it's more important that you focus on, like I said, the quality of the prayer, not the quantity. Sometimes we how can we finish the Quran and but if it's not quality salat, then it's not really the objective. It's not what we're hoping to gain. It's not what's truly beneficial. Allah knows best.
Barakallahu feekum. Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. Let's move on to some of the questions. We have got quite a few questions coming in, inshallah. We have a question regarding the Eid prayer. And they're saying, how can we in this time perform Eid? I know there are different opinions. What would you say is the correct thing for people to do in the absence of the masajid?
Alhamdulillah, it's been confirmed that Anas ibn Malik radiallahu anhu, when he wasn't able to attend, the great Sahabi, the companion of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he wasn't able to pray in the congregation with the Muslims during that time, that he gathered some of the members of his household, and they prayed Eid prayer in the house. So this type of incident that happened during the time of the Sahaba, it's very beautiful and beneficial for us at these times when we have an issue. Something's happened, something wasn't known before. What do we do? Alhamdulillah, the Sahabi did it in front of us, and this is who we follow. We follow the ones who truly understood the Quran and understood the Sunnah. He understood that we can pray the Eid prayer in the house, no problem. But what does this mean, we can pray the Eid prayer in the house? That we can pray the Eid prayer without the khutbah. We don't give the khutbah. That's the difference. You pray the prayer, but you do not do the khutbah. So you would pray just like you would pray at Eid. It's better if you can pray in congregation with your family, obviously, and you pray the same exact way, which was making the takbirs after you say Allahu Akbar, and this is takbir al-ihram, and then you have 6 takbirs. Some scholars say it's 7 altogether. Some say including the takbir al-ihram, some say others, but what we follow is that it's 7 including takbir al-ihram. So you have Allahu Akbar, and then after that you make 6 more takbirs, raising the hands, the opinion that you raise your hands with each takbir, and then you read Surah Al-Fatiha, and you read Surah Al-A'la from the Sunnah, or you can read any other surah from the Quran. If you remember Surah Al-A'la, that's good. The Prophet ﷺ used to focus on reading that a lot during Salat al-Eid. And then after the second rak'ah, when we get up and we say Allahu Akbar, getting up, after that takbir we make 5 takbirs, and also raising our hands with each one of them, and then we read Surah Al-Fatiha and Surah Al-Ghashiyah. Is from the You should read, if you can read any of the surah any, as well from the Quran, or any ayat from the Quran as well, inshallah. And then you make the salams as you finish the 2 rakats. It's 2 units, 2 rakats. This is how it's done. Just like you would pray Eid outside, this is how you pray it inside. But without, the only difference is that we're not going to give the khutbah, inshallah.
Is there any specific time that
Yeah,
the person needs to
obviously
pray?
it starts from right after the time of shuruk. So as soon as you make the like 15 minutes after the shuruk time, that's when the time of Eid prayer starts. And usually Salatul Fitr, the sunnah is to delay it a bit. So let's say, for example, now that, for us here, if our shuruk is about what time is the shuruk exactly? So our shuruk is about maybe almost 6 o'clock. So if we were to pray around 7 a.m. or 8 a.m., that's good. You could delay it a bit. But when it comes,
So here in the UK, it's about 5:30. So I guess about
6:37, that would be a good time. And that goes back obviously because I mean, well, you guys know what's leaving the masjid, so I was gonna say it goes back to the imam. You forget, you know. Traffic.
It'll be interesting if you have in your house, you have like a number of jamaat here. You can say, okay, we got our first one at 7, the next one's at 8 o'clock, and the next after that's at 9, inshallah, for those who can't make it.
So I mean, it's the sunnah for Eid al-Fitr always. We delay it a bit for Eid al-Fitr, and the hikmah behind this is to give the people the opportunity to pay their zakat al-Fitr, because the sunnah is that we pray it from the last night until before we go to Eid. You can pay a couple of days before, obviously, as well, but this is the sunnah. So the people who want to follow that sunnah, that you give them the opportunity to have the ability to pay the zakat before the salat. And then when it comes to Salat al-Eid al-Adha, then the sunnah is to pray it as early as possible, because we want to give the people the opportunity to go and to offer their sacrifice and to slaughter, inshallah ta'ala.
SubhanAllah, Jazakallah khair for that. Okay, moving on to some of the more questions we've got. We've got a question sent by email. It's a bit of a difficult question, so but I'll mention it. It says, Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. If a person has some bad, random thoughts about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and it comes randomly, but he hates having those thoughts and he seeks refuge from shaitan and says, A'udhu billahi minash shaitan rajim, does this happening mean we don't have yaqeen, since it's a condition of the shahada to have yaqeen, or this does not have, or this does not make us reduce in doing any deeds or stop us? It basically hasn't stopped him from doing good deeds and making dua. He has these random.
Alhamdulillah, may Allah bless him. That's exactly what he should do, is to seek refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Say, A'udhu billahi minash shaitan rajim, because those type of thoughts, even as was mentioned in the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, that they only come from shaitan. So when these thoughts come, we seek refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala right away, and we continue to do as much good as we can. One of the things that can help us overcome this is to study the issue of the science of Tawheed, and knowing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as He should be known. The more you know Allah, and the more knowledge you have of Allah. And how do we know Allah? We know Allah through His creation. We know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through His beautiful names and His attributes. And when you know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala like this, and you increase in your love for Allah, and you increase in your knowledge of Allah, and you increase then in your yaqeen, your certainty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When this happens, and it's going to be much easier for us to overcome these type of thoughts, and we're going to find ourselves that very rarely or never will have these type of thoughts, inshallah ta'ala.
May Allah protect us all from that, inshallah, and allow us to have pure thoughts throughout the day. We have another question here from, I think, an elderly uncle, Sheikh Najm al-Hussein. It says, Dear Sheikh, may Allah preserve you. Could you give us some tips for someone at an older age to memorize the Quran?
Okay, alhamdulillah, it's obviously the older you get, many times it becomes more difficult. No doubt about that. That's why the scholars mentioned always focus on memorizing when you're young. But something very beautiful that Imam al-Bukhari mentioned in his book Sahih Bukhari, when he mentioned the statement of Umar ibn Khattab radiyallahu anhu, he said, "Utlubul ilm qabla an tusawwadu," to seek knowledge before an tasawwadu. And there's two meanings the scholars give, because in linguistic it could mean two things. Tasawwadu means before you become someone who's a sayyid, someone who has responsibility, someone who's and responsible for this or that. That's one of the meanings. Or tasawwadu means, which means like to darken your hair color as well. So you here you become older, you become responsible. Here you become older, so much so that you have to dye the color of your hair. So he says, seek the knowledge, and before you become older. But then Imam al-Bukhari, he mentioned something beautiful after this statement. He said that, وَقَدْ طَلَبَ الْعِلْمِ أَصْحَابَ النَّبِيِّ صلى الله عليه وسلم هم كبار. That the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, that they used to seek knowledge when they were old. We forget this sometimes. And many of them became Muslim when they were, sometimes more advanced in their age as well, and they were able to do it. So the fact that they could do it also proves to us that we can do it as well. Yes, it's more difficult. We have that in our mind. It's more difficult. That's why the brother is asking, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless him. But also sometimes when you get a bit older and you have sometimes maybe less responsibility, if you have, sometimes your kids are helping you out, what have you. So what you need to do in this situation, it's very similar to what you would do in a normal way of memorizing the Quran. But you might need more effort now, obviously, and more time. That's really going to be the only difference. But one of the things that you can do to make it easier for you is to obviously listen to it a lot. And take it, alhamdulillah, we have now with the apps that we have, we can constantly listen to the surah, or you can even put it on a select amount of ayah. You can listen to it 1,000 times. Even my kids, when they go to sleep with the app they have, they'll put it on. And just like, for example, if he has 5 verses or 3 verses he's memorizing tomorrow, that just plays like 1,000 times throughout the night. So basically, from the time we go to bed to wake up Fajr, mashallah, these ayat or I think even has more than 1,000 now. He figured out how to do it. So it just goes out throughout the night, just repeating this. That goes into your mind. It's going to make it easier. And then also another tip is that read it a lot before. Don't come like the day you're going to memorize it and then start to read it. Make sure you read it properly. If you're going to, obviously, preferably reading to a sheikh, make sure you read it properly, and then come the next day and memorize, or even the day after. It doesn't matter. That you don't, but don't try to memorize on the same day. Like, make sure you read it properly at least 10 times today, and then you come to memorize them tomorrow. You're going to find it's going to be easier. If you really want to make it really strong, the best way to make it strong is to write it down, old school style. And I know many of the qaris who memorize the Quran on the lawh, on the wooden boards where they wrote it down, and their hifd is absolutely amazing. And I even remember one of my neighbors who he's a big qari in Medina, and he was a Quran teacher. That's what he did for a living. And I said, how much do you revise of the Quran every day? And I mean, this is very rare, by the way, but because most hafiz revise 5 just a day. He said, I never revise. I was shocked. He told me this. I was like, what is this? And his hifd, I mean, I've prayed behind him. The guy's amazing, never makes mistakes. He said, what do I do? He said, every time I get into the car and I'm going around, he said, I'm always listening to the Quran. And he said, also when he said, I have 3 or 4 hours in the morning where students are reading for me. 3 or 4 hours where the students are reading to me. He said, what made it strong in the beginning? He said, because he was from Sudan originally. He said that we wrote it down on the lawh, when you have the ink pen and the wooden slate where you write down the Quran. He said, it made my hifd very strong. So he said, now the fact I'm listening all the time, he said, it's enough for me. He said, I do read every now and then, obviously, but he said, I don't have a specific amount that I read because, he said, I'm constantly listening, and the fact I wrote it down in the beginning, he said, my hifd, alhamdulillah, and he never ever made any mistakes, Allah barak, and he memorized all of the qira'at. I mean, that's, like I said, that's rare. You'll find most of them read, sometimes up to 5 years a day to make sure that the hifd stays strong. But the fact he was constantly listening, and he had wrote it down in the beginning, he said, that's what I owe the hifd, the strong hifd, is the fact that we wrote it down in the beginning. So writing it down, our scholars mentioned that if you, even like before, they couldn't just go buy a book like we would. They couldn't go online on Amazon and get the book sent to them like we do nowadays. They couldn't afford it. There wasn't a lot of paper. So they would actually write the entire book down. And like some of our scholars mentioned, that if you were to write a book or write something down, it's actually stronger than if you were to have read it 10 times. It actually becomes much stronger if you were to have written it down than having have read a book 10 times. So writing it down makes it very, and that could help the uncle, inshallah, as he writes the ayah down. It's going to help him stick it. And then after that, one of the things that really helps as well is the issue of making sure that we understand what it is that we're reading. And that's one of the key things. When you understand the Quran and you understand the tafsir of what you're memorizing, it makes it much easier, inshallah ta'ala.
Okay, so may Allah make us all huffaz and memorizers of the Quran, inshallah, and elevate our ranks. They have another question here from Brother Hasib Abdurrazaq here on YouTube. He says, is it permissible to pray more than one surah per rak'ah in prayers other than...
Yes, it's permissible, and it's been confirmed in some of the sunnah it's been done. So that's not a problem. If you want to read, even we know from the Sahabi who would always add Qul huwa Allahu ahad, he would add Surah Al-Ikhlas, so that proves to us as well that it's permissible, inshallah ta'ala.
Is there a need to do it in a specific order? I was always told that you should start off.
Yes,
in order of the Quran, so
most scholars do say this, but in reality, there are some hadiths which show that it's not that they didn't read the exact order that it was, or read this one a bit later than the other one. So I mean, it's permissible, but it's better, as the scholars mentioned, that we do read it in order, inshallah ta'ala.
Okay, inshallah. Okay. Moving on to another question, inshallah. The question we have is with regards to Laylatul Qadr, and what are the signs of Laylatul Qadr? And he's asking, Sheikh, did you think it was?
When it comes to the sign, obviously we know some of the signs that it's not a cool morning, it's not too hot, that they don't have the same rays of the sun, and different signs that were mentioned in the hadith. But always, what I recommend to people, and what I do personally, is I don't go look for it, and I don't ask people, and I don't want to know, because what happens? Let's say, for example, that because a lot of times, as the scholars have mentioned, a lot of times it's on the 27th. Other times it's been on the 21st, but it could be on the 23rd. It could be the 25th. It could be the 29th. But these are the most days that usually it happens, either 21st or the 27th. So this being the case, what have happened on the 21st? What is our state going to be? We're not going to be focusing during the other parts. So I prefer not to know, honestly, and I prefer not to go out, and I prefer not to look. And obviously, when you go out sometimes in the morning, and you might notice, but I don't like to make that my policy, because then what happens is that you tend to you will get lazy. Like, for example, if it was last night, 27th, that would be great. But I know subconsciously what's going to happen tomorrow on the 29th. We're not going to make the same effort that we would. So we always like to go out with a bang and make sure that we're sure, inshallah. Even I always say that even the even nights, we need to also focus on those, because the Prophet ﷺ, he would increase in all the 10 nights, not just the odd nights as well. So I mean, that's those are some of the signs you mentioned in the beginning, the issue of the weather and the sun and what have you. But I would always recommend not to get too much into that, because then we tend not to focus on the rest of the nights, and Allah knows best. And they should let us know after, inshallah, that they're on the night of the 25th. I said after Ramadan, if someone knows, they said then they let us know on the night of the 25th or the night of the 27th, like this, inshallah. That's what I would prefer. Allah knows best.
I remember someone wanted to design a app which took the pictures around the world on the specific days in the morning at sunrise, just to come up afterwards and say, yeah, I think we ascertained that this night was Laylatul Qadr.
And I'm sure it's good intention, but I would prefer to, what do you call it, to do like that. So it would be, we make sure we focus.
I mean, even if they did have the app, I guess there's no way of 100% proving anyway.
What happens subconsciously, if we hear from all around the world that it was last night, then we're gonna kind of just be in chill mode until the end and the rest of Ramadan, unfortunately.
Alhamdulillah, inshallah. Okay, we got a follow-up question from Brother Hasib. He's asked, in the Taraweeh prayer, can you repeat the same surahs if you've not memorized enough Quran?
Yeah, no problem, inshallah. That's not a problem, inshallah. I mean, because that's gonna be, for example, and this is the reality now that we're in lockdown. It's gonna be some people who their recitation from the Mus'haf is not that good. Maybe they just memorize some of the small surahs which is Amma. So they're gonna read the same surahs all throughout Ramadan, inshallah, and they'll get their full reward, inshallah. But this should be a message or reminder for them to improve now after Ramadan. Obviously, you couldn't have done much now to improve, so you need to improve after Ramadan, inshallah, and to increase, inshallah.
Inshallah. We've got another question which has been sent a few times, so I'm going to mention this one first, and that is from, sorry, just go back into it, from Brother Junaid Akhtar on YouTube. Is it halal to do forex trading? Are you trading in currency? And how about using leverage while trading?
This Allah, I don't know. I haven't studied it, so I don't know the details of this. I mean, I've been asked before, but I haven't really looked into it, so I don't know, inshallah. Maybe ask Shaykh Haytham, inshallah, someone who's looked into it, they'll be able to tell you, inshallah.
Inshallah. On YouTube, we have another question. The last question we have, Sheikh. today. It's from on YouTube, the brother called Gulu Boy. Can we say the dua Allahumma innaka afuwun tuhibbul afwa fa'fu anni in the
Yes, and that's one of the places we should focus on saying it. Because this is the best dua to make is the dua in sujood. As the Prophet ﷺ, he said that it's the closest that you'll be to your Rabb when you're in sujood. He said, so make sure you make a lot of dua. So there's an amazing dua that he taught us to make during these last 10 nights. And this is the time we should make in the dua, inshallah ta'ala, is during the sujood. It's one of the great times to make this dua, inshallah ta'ala. Well, yeah.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh, for that. I hope you enjoy the rest of Ramadan, inshallah. Please remember us in your du'as, inshallah, with you and your family, inshallah, and keep safe. This was the last, if everyone listening, this was the last daily QA of Ramadan with our Sheikh, dear beloved Sheikh AbdurRaheem McCarthy. Inshallah, we'll see him another time, I'm sure, certainly soon. Maybe another event that we do online here at Islam 21,
Or
inshallah.
another event in Turkey, inshallah, here, inshallah, inshallah.
Inshallah, definitely. That sounds good. That sounds like a good idea. Alhamdulillah, inshallah. Hopefully, inshallah, Allah open the doors and we'll be allowed to travel there sooner than later, inshallah. Jazakallah khair, Sheikh, and jazakallah khair to everybody else, inshallah, who are listening, inshallah. I hope we answered most of the questions. I know we missed some of them. I do apologize at the beginning of the delay in start. There were some technical difficulties, and also during the show itself, there was just one point where the Sheikh's internet cut off. But inshallah, I hope you still enjoyed it and took a lot of benefit from it. And may Allah accept your fast, may Allah accept your standing in prayer and your sadaqah and zakat that you pay, inshallah. And may Allah keep you safe, inshallah.
Ameen.
And unite this ummah. Jazakumullahu khairan. Assalamu alaikum.
ودعائي وابتهالي شاهد لي